Live from the University of Southern Mindanao, Cabacan, North Cotabato.
This is BSND 101.9 News FM,
Giving quality service to Filipino people. Good morning, BSND community! Good day! It's September 8, 2022. I'm Eman Coronado, and you are tuned in to BSND 101.9 News FM. Ready your ears to hear about the period of revolution of Meso-America. For the headlines, we have the timeline for the Meso-American Revolution, starting with the Paleo-Indian, Archaic, Pre-Classic, Classic, Post-Classic, Colonial, and Post-Colonial periods. The first period of Meso-American Revolution is the Paleo-Indian period. Irene, please give us the details.
In the history of Mesoamerica, the Paleo-Indian period or Lithic period is the time when people first started living in the area and stayed there until agriculture and other early signs of civilization. There are different opinions about when the stage ended around 9000 BP and the transition to the next stage, the Archaic, is not clear. A lot of people have different ideas about where it began, as well as about when people first lived in the Americas in general. A large number of researchers agree that people started living in the Americas around 11,200 years ago. This is Irene Marie Perla for your Paleo-Indian Report.
Next on the timeline of Meso-American Revolution is the Archaic period, ranging from 3500 BCE to 1800 BCE. The Archaic period, also called the Pre-Ceramic period, is a time period in Mesoamerican history that starts around 8000 BCE and ends around 2000 BCE. It is usually divided into the early, middle, and late Archaic periods. People usually think of the Archaic period as a long period of change between the Paleo-Indian hunters and gatherers and the pre-classic villages that grew up around farming. This time is known for the domestication of major Mesoamerican crops, the growth of agriculture, and the start of people living in one place. During this time, big changes in farming and living in one place led to the rise of complex societies in the area. These changes took place in different ways in different parts of Mesoamerica. This is Eman Coronado for the Archaic Report. The third period of Mesoamerican Revolution is the Pre-Classic period. Maria, please give us the details.
From 2500 BCE to 200 CE, there was a time called Pre-Classic. It started when people in places like Matachen, Nayarit, and Puerto Marquez, Guerrero started making pottery for the first time in the West. Some authors say that the early development of pottery in this area is linked to the connections between the people of South America and the people who live along the coast of Mexico. People think that the use of ceramics shows that a society has become more settled, and it shows that Mesoamerica is different from the hunter-gatherer societies in the desert to the north. The Pre-Classic era, which is called the formative period, has three parts: the early 2500 to 1200 BCE, the middle 1500 to 600 BCE, and the late 600 to 200 BCE. During the first phase, ceramics were made all the area. Maize and the other vegetables were grown on a large scale, and the first hierarchical societies appeared along the Gulf of Mexico coast. During the early Pre-Classic period, the Capacha culture was a driving force in the process of making Mesoamerica more civilized, and its pottery was used all over the area.
Thank you, Maria. For the fourth period of Mesoamerican Revolution, we have the Classic period. Earl, please give us the details.
During the Classic period, there were a lot of independent city-states in Maya area, and the central Mexico and the Yucatan were just starting to come together politically. Culture became more different from one region to the next. The city-states of Teotihuacan ruled the Valley of Mexico until the early 8th century. However, because the Teotihuacano didn't leave any written record, we don't know much about the political structure of the area. The city-states of Monte Alban ruled the Valley of Oaxaca until the end of Classic period. Not much is known about them because their writing is hard to read. During the Classic era, highly skilled art like stockwork, architecture, sculpture relief, mural painting, poetry, and lapidary grew and spread. After Shagkak arrived in 378 CE, Teotihuacan had a lot of military power in Maya region. This helped many city-states like Tikal, Oksaktuon, Calakmul, Kupan, Quirigua, Palenque, Cuba, and Caracol reach their peak. Each of this government was mostly independent, but they often made deals with each other and sometimes became vassal states. During this time, the main fight was between the city of Tikal and Calakmul, which fought a series of war over more than 500 years. During the Thermal Classic, each of the states got worse and was eventually left behind. This is Maria Alexis Duane Olvido reporting the Classic. This is Maria Alexis Duane Olvido reporting the Classic period.
Thank you, Earl. For the fifth period of the Meso-American Revolution, we have the post-classic period. Wyatt, please give us the details.
People often think of the post-classic as a time when culture got worse, but architecture, engineering, and weapons were getting better and better at the time. Metallurgy was first used around 800s to make jewelry and some tools. Over the next few hundred years, new alloys and techniques were developed. During the post-classic, people moved around quickly and the population grew quickly, especially in the central Mexico after 1200s, and the different ways of running the government were tried. For example, the more theocratic governments of the classic period seem to have been replaced by dual rulership in Yucatan, while most of the central Mexico was run by oligarchic councils. In the same ways, it looks like the wealthy Poctica and military orders got stronger than they were in classic times. Some Mesoamericans were able to move up in society because of this. In the 9th and 10th centuries, the Toltec ruled Mexico for a while, but then they fell apart. Mayapan brought the northern Maya together for a while. In the 11th and 12th centuries, Oaxaca was united for a short time by Mixtec rulers. The Aztec Empire started in the early 1500s, and it looked like it was going to take over the Valley of Mexico like no other empire had since Teotihuacan. By the 15th century, it was clear that the revival of the Maya in Yucatan and southern Guatemala and the growth of Aztec imperialism had made it possible for a renaissance of science and art. Some examples are the Pueblan Mexica style of pottery, codex illumination, and gold work, the growth of Nahua poetry, and the Aztec elite's founding of botanical institutes. Spain was the first country from Europe to get in touch with the Mesoamerica. Its conquistadors defeated the Aztec with the help of many native allies. This is Wyatt Milioria, Post-Classic reporting.
Thank you, Wyatt. For the sixth period of the Meso-American Revolution, we have the colonial period. Remy, please give us the details.
Spanish conquests put an end to the Aztec Empire rule. This was the start of the colonial period. The Spaniards did this by making strategic alliance with the empire enemies like Tlaxcala, Huezocinco, Xochimilco, and even Texcoco, a former member of the Aztec Triple Alliance. Even though the Spanish Empire didn't take over all of Mesoamerica right away, but the dramatic defeat of the Aztecs was the start of an unstoppable process of conquest and incorporation in Mesoamerica that was finished by the middle of the 17th century. Indigenous people didn't go away, but their numbers dropped a lot when the Spaniards came and brought new disease. They also died in large number when they were forced to work as a slave and when there is epidemics. The Spaniards took control of Mexico after Tenochtitlan fell, and this is the start of 300 years of colonial period. This is Remy Ben Madiloso reporting.
Thank you, Remy. For the seventh period of the Meso-American Revolution, we have the post-colonial period. Melvin, please give us the details.
The Mesoamerica in this period is now developed as with the rest of the world. Globalization has paved the way for technology to be shared between countries and regions including Mesoamerica. Example of technological advancement in this period are computers and modern machineries. This is Melvin U. Perocho reporting.
You have just heard the latest news from the Meso-American Revolution. Again, this is Eamon Coronado, your anchor for today. This is BSND 101.9 News FM.